Let's head back to the dojo for some more Mr. Miyagi wisdom. Let's do it. Welcome back to my channel. Hope you're all doing well out there. And today we're going to get on to the sequel to The Karate Kid. But before we get into it, like, comment, subscribe. Join me here. I greatly would appreciate that. Click on the little notification bell. That way every time I upload a video, you'll get notified. You can check out what I have going on over here. Now let's talk about The Karate Kid Part 2. Now, the first Karate Kid was a huge hit in '84. Big summertime movie, unexpected hit for the studio. So 10 days after the release of the first Karate Kid, when the studio saw it was a hit, they got quickly to work on a sequel. Now, this film came out June 20th of 1986, about 2 years later. Had a budget of $13 million, and upon release, it made $115 million, which is an even bigger hit than the first film. And they went on to make a third one. We're going to talk about that one next week. Now, this movie's rated PG. It's an hour and 53 minutes long. John G. Avildsen was back to direct this film, so the creative teams, for the most part, stayed the same. Pat Morita is back as Mr. Miyagi, and Ralph Macchio is back as Daniel. Now, Elizabeth Shue didn't come back for this one. She was unavailable. She was off at college. And right at the beginning of the film, they kind of explain her away when Daniel shows up at Mr. Miyagi's house and his car is all broken. He says that Allie hit something and then she fell in love with this football player at UCLA. And it's kind of like a throwaway line and he's kind of bummed out about it, but then they're right on to the main story. Right at the beginning of the film, we get a flashback or a recap of the first film. Now, it's kind of a disjointed flashback. The scenes don't go in order as they happen in the film. And then we see the fight between Daniel and Johnny at the end of the first film at the All Valley tournament. And then we see the film picks up right after, moments after the tournament. Now, this scene was shot originally for the ending of the first film, but they cut it out and they saved it for this film. Well, before they knew they made a sequel, but when they wrote the sequel, they worked this in. And we see Kreese giving Johnny shit, putting him in a headlock, and Mr. Miyagi steps in and makes kind of like a dick out of Kreese, and Kreese ends up making both of his hands all bloody. And Mr. Miyagi kind of embarrasses him without even beating him up. He just kind of, embarrasses him in front of his people. And that's the end of Cobra Kai. We don't see Cobra Kai the rest of the time in this film. Pretty soon, Daniel's mom has to go to Fresno for the summer, and Daniel's bummed out, thinks he has to go with her. Mr. Miyagi already spoke to her. He's building a guest room at his house, and he arranged that Daniel could stay with him for the summer, which he's very excited about. But not so far after this, Mr. Miyagi gets a letter from Okinawa saying that his father is ill, and can he please come and visit and see his dad. And he hops on a plane, Daniel goes with him. And that's where this sequel really does things that sequels don't normally do. They really do change up the formula. It would have been very easy just to Xerox what they did in the first film. And they don't do that here. So I got to give them props there for doing something totally different than the first film. And this is more of a Mr. Miyagi-centric story. I mean, yes, Daniel has a part to play, and he's Mr. Miyagi's best friend, and he's there to console Mr. Miyagi when his dad does pass away once they get to his village in Japan. And Daniel has his own new love story with this new girl that he meets when he's in Mr. Miyagi's village, Kumiko. And it's all very sweet, but this is definitely more Mr. Miyagi focused. Although Daniel does get his time to shine here, obviously, because they're the two biggest characters in the first film. Once they get there, Daniel's very interested in learning all he can about where Mr. Miyagi came from. I mean, he is his best friend. He loves him as a father figure and a best friend, so he wants to know about his background and where he came from. And he asks a lot of questions, and they do something very smart here, though. Again, like with the first film, Daniel, yes, while still a teenager, he pays attention. He observes what's going on. He wants to learn. He's not annoying. He doesn't get in the way. He serves the story well here, even though this is Mr. Miyagi's movie by far. We find out that Mr. Miyagi has this grudge with his old best friend Sato, who's kind of like the big businessman in the area who owns most of the village, and the villagers have to pay him rent. And Chosen, he has his own karate school, Sato Karate School, and Chosen is his number one pupil, and it's his nephew. And Chosen, I know he shows back up in Cobra Kai. If you haven't seen it, get on to Cobra Kai if you like the Karate Kid series, because it kicks ass. And That's the only... Chosen is so over the top and being such an asshole in this film. It's truly unbelievable how much of a prick this kid is. He's just giving Daniel shit at every turn. He's an obnoxious dick through the whole film. Does some of the most crazy shit for somebody his age. Like, he's willing to kill over this grudge that really has nothing to do with him. And then as the film progresses and Daniel and Kumiko's relationship even gets stronger, at the end of the film, almost towards the end of the film, there's a typhoon that comes through and Daniel helps save Sato with Mr. Miyagi. And Chosen leaves him behind to die. And this really shows Chosen's honor, where Daniel and Mr. Miyagi didn't have to question. They went and helped Sato out and saved him. And Daniel goes and saves this little girl who gave warning to the village when this typhoon was about to hit, who got trapped up on this pole. And Sato's changes just like that. Like, he forgives Mr. Miyagi. Like, he wanted to fight him to the death until this point, and now he's like, I have my friend back. And he kind of outcasts Chosen very quickly, even though he knows that he taught Chosen to act the way he's acting, just like Kreese did to the Cobra Kai kids. And at the end, there's this festival in this castle by the sea, this open castle by the sea. And Kumiko's doing this dance number, and Chosen comes down the line and threatens to kill her if Daniel doesn't fight him to the death. And they had to work a karate match in, and they do at the end, and we get our final karate match, and Daniel wins, as we'd expect. Our heroes win. And that's just like the first film, as soon as Daniel wins, that's the end of the movie. That's the end of Karate Kid 2. Again, I gotta give him props. This sequel goes in places that you wouldn't expect, considering this was the 80s, coming off a very popular movie that was unexpected by the studio. It would have been very easy for them to Xerox the formula and do it all over again, but they do something totally different by taking Daniel out of LA and Mr. Miyagi, taking him to Okinawa, and then basically showing Daniel, him learning about this culture that he had just heard about from Mr. Miyagi in the first film. So in that part, it's very sweet in that respect of Daniel just trying to learn about where Mr. Miyagi came from, how he grew up, what this village means to Mr. Miyagi. So it's really sweet in that aspect. And Mr. Miyagi, Pat Morita's great as Mr. Miyagi once again. Everybody's great here across the board. The other actors, the new actors, there's a lot of new cast here. The only two cast members that are, besides seeing the Cobra Kai and Kreese in the beginning of the film, they're all new cast here. And we do get to know them and to know what their life is like. And you got to give the filmmakers credit for that. They took a chance. They went a completely different direction. And it worked, obviously. And it was a huge hit at the box office. And it's actually a damn good sequel, even though it's doing something totally unexpected, totally different. And I got to give them props for that. I would give The Karate Kid Part 2 a 9 out of 10. This is a very strong sequel. I don't love it quite as much as the first film, but I do love it nonetheless. And rewatching it last night just reminded me how much I love this film. I haven't seen it in a long time, and it holds up extremely well. And if you love The Karate Kid and you haven't seen the sequel in a while, sit down and check it out. And then if you haven't seen Cobra Kai, because some of these characters you do see again during Cobra Kai, get on that Cobra Kai train. It took me a little bit to get on it, but I love Cobra Kai. It kicks ass. But yes, 9 out of 10 for The Karate Kid Part 2. Have you ever seen this film? Leave a comment down below to let me know. Hit the thumbs up, hit the subscribe button, share this video. I greatly would appreciate that. I'll be back next week with Blade 2, The Karate Kid 3, and Blade Trinity. But until then, I hope you're all doing well out there, and bye.